Hey guys, it's Wednesday, October the 4th. I'm in the garage for what I'd call a power hour. May not even be that long. One of the things I wanted to get done today is to get the engine painted, the block painted. My goal is to have the block back into the chassis by the end of the weekend, and I can start hanging some things back in place. And so tonight is the first step in that direction by painting the block. Prepped and ready to go. I've wiped it down with Prep-Sol and then a final wipe with alcohol. I'm not going to worry too much about hardware at this point because I'm going to change all of that to new hardware. So I'll just paint over it at this time and then swipe it out a little bit later. But everything should be ready to go. I'm not going to do the valve cover. I'm going to paint it separately, but I'm just using it to mask with right now. And so I've got a few things left to do to mask up. I'm going to put a bag over the distributor and mask up the couple of little things right here, and I'll be ready to shoot it. So stay tuned. Let's come back in a few minutes and let's just see what we got. So now it's all masked up, so let's proceed to spray it. So just bear with me. Well, here you go. This is the first coat, first complete coat. And what I'm using is this VHT engine enamel. It's the first time I've used it. I've had several people tell me that they've tried it. It's a high temperature engine enamel. What I like about it is it's got a thick pigment base to it, so it clings really well, and it just has a real even flow, and it levels out really nice. So I'm really impressed with it. Well, time will tell how it really holds up. But as far as spraying, it really is laid down really nice. Today is the lowest humidity day we've had in a while. So that's why I haven't painted this engine. I've been trying to let the humidity drop down a little bit. It's still extremely high today, but it's lower than it's been in a while. And I really have a goal of getting the engine back on the chassis by the end of the week, and so I can start getting it mated up. One of the issues I have that I'm trying to accomplish is I want to get the chassis rolling so I can take it to the muffler shop, because I have a set of headers that I'd like to put on here, but they need to be adjusted because when I put the engine mount on it, this first bank of headers comes across like this. So I'm going to need to cut it and have my muffler guy reshape that particular long run and get it to move just around the engine mount. I don't think that'll be a problem. He wanted me to bring the engine to him, but I think it'll be a lot easier to put the engine back in the chassis and roll the whole chassis on my trailer to his shop and let him TIG weld that in place. I want it to look nice and neat. He's going to have to make 2 cuts on it, and so I want those welds to be good. I personally can't weld that well, and I certainly don't have a TIG, so he can TIG that together and it'll look seamless and look really nice. So this is the first coat. Let's let this go flash over for about 15-20 minutes, and then I'm going to put a second coat on it of this VHT high temperature engine enamel. It's got a 550 Fahrenheit rating, so we'll see what it is. One of the other things I want to do is I'm trying to decide on what I'm going to do about this fan. I've got a 6-bladed fan here that was on the car. I don't know if I want to go back with that or put on a yellow or red fan on this if they will fit to move a little more air. But if I decide to keep this fan, then I will pull it off and bead blast it and then paint it up again. But that's a decision I don't have to make today, but it is something I want to consider. Now the oil pan, I really don't have to do anything with except for wipe it down. When I originally put this engine together several years ago, I powder coated the oil pan, so it's really in nice shape. All I got to do is clean it up. So I really haven't done anything with it other than just wipe it down. And so, again, the valve cover, I'll address that. I just have it in place now to protect the valve train as I spray this. So in about 15 minutes, we'll let this flash up, and then we'll give it a second coat, and I think that'll call it a night for tonight, and that'll accomplish something that I've been wanting to get done and get it back on the trailer. Get it back on the chassis. And so I've already, if you haven't seen, I've already painted the transmission. It's ready to go. I made it back up, and then we'll set it in place. So guys, just hang with me. We'll give you a final look at this thing in in about 15 minutes. I'll come back. I don't want to hold you here watching paint dry. That'd be kind of boring. So we'll see you in a few minutes. And there you go. That's the third coat. I went ahead and put 2 additional coats on it. I've used 2 cans of paint, and so I'm really liking how it's laid out and looked. You know, I have a lot of guys are going to probably say, that's not the right color. That should be semi-gloss, or this should be matte or flat or whatever. But I really do like the look of glossy engines. I'd go through all this work. I want it to look nice, and so I choose to use a high gloss. And I will probably come back after this dries and hit it with a high temperature clear. I also like it because if you have any oil spills or changing oil or anything and you get oil on it, it wipes up a lot easier with a glossy surface than it does with a matted surface, in my opinion. So I do like the gloss. I'll stick with the gloss, and I'm just really happy with the way it looks right now. And so I'm going to let it dry out, and next thing we'll probably be doing will be to start mating up the transmission back with this, and I'll change out some of the hardware on the front, like the timing chain cover. I have new screws and bolts for that. So I'll change that stuff out. All the miscellaneous hardware, I'll give it a chance to be changed out. So guys, as always, thank you for watching and subscribing. If you like this channel, share it with some of your friends. I just enjoy sharing with you my passion of these cars. I'm no expert at any of this. It's just something I like to do, and you know, together we all learn something different. I may have something I do differently than you do, and I've certainly learned a lot by watching my friends David and Lynn on their channels. Every day is a new experience. So if you don't have a chance to watch their videos, I highly encourage you to watch Chef Tush and Rusty Beauties with Alon Yakov. These guys are really professional at what they do. They're inspiring to me, and so take a shot at looking there at stuff. And again, as always, God bless you. Thank you for watching. Have a great day, and we'll see you. Ronnie out. Sometimes things are just worth waiting for. I've been waiting for this for about 6 months, and it was well worth the wait. Hey guys, today is Saturday, August the 7th. I'm in the shop. It's a little late in the afternoon. We had a birthday party for my grandkids. It was a lot of fun. We had a big water slide, the whole 9 works. And so I didn't get a chance to get into the shop early this morning when it was cooler. But I'm in here now, and it's brutally hot right now. It's like being in an oven. But I wanted to get a few things done. And so one of the things I'm going to do today is try to put the oil pan gasket back on and put it and then reattach the oil pan. But yesterday was interesting. I posted on Facebook a question to the Triumph clubs and said, what is your process and what is your technique and what sealants do you use when you put on an oil pan? And I was amazed at all the different techniques and all the different sealants people use. And you know, everybody's got their own process, everybody's got their own way of doing things. But it was really interesting to see how many varying objectives there were. But there was one common denominator through all of it, and is that you've got to get the oil pan flat. And I wasn't asking this question on how to do it. I was just asking it to see what the options are and what your technique is. And I was amazed again, like I say, all the different techniques that were used. But again, the common denominator is making sure that the oil pan is flat and the bolt holes do not crown. What happens a lot of times when people over tighten these things and it dimples they over tighten so much that it dimples the bottom of the pan and creates a little well. And so it doesn't seal well because it's no longer flat. My process is that I take the oil pan, clean it as best as I can, and then I take like a Scotch-Brite pad on a orbital grinder, and I go over the top surface to clean it. But it also flattens it out, and it makes sure that if there's any crown at all, that crown is shaved off and sanded flat. and then I apply a sealer on it. I put my oil pan gasket in place, and then I take the whole thing and set it upside down and let the weight of the oil pan seal the gasket in place. After I get it sealed, I apply aviation gasket sealer by Permatex. It's a Forma gasket. Lynn Yakov, a good friend, video friend, he uses the same product. We've been using it for years. It's tacky, it's easy to remove, and so I apply that to the side, one side of the gasket, and to the other side on the block, and then I torque it down. So that's kind of the process. So what I did today is, what I've done is I've gotten the block, the surfaces are clean, I've Scotch-Brite them down, and I've tightened up the bolts. But since I was in here, I thought I would go ahead and pull the rod bearing, and so I pulled the rod cap and to check it. And this engine, like I said over and over, it doesn't have very many miles on it. It was rebuilt probably 7 to 10 years ago. I can't remember, but it doesn't have a lot of miles on it. I pulled the rod cap and I went on the number 2 cylinder, and it was beautiful. I mean, it was just as shiny as can be. There's no wear in it. There was a tiny, tiny little scratchy groove in it, but it wasn't down to the tri-metal. It was just like a fingernail type groove. Nothing alarming, and I was really amazed. I don't think I'm going to pull off any more of the caps. I was very pleased with what I've seen. And if you look down, and let's see if I can focus in on this, on the cam looks really good. I don't see any dark spots, any burn spots, anything in here indicate something to be concerned about. I think it looks really good. The lobes, everything looks shiny and smooth, and so I think we're in good shape here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to proceed with what I was telling you. Is I've got the oil pan prepped. I've taken a Scotch-Brite and I've gone over the top, and it's all nice and flat. There was a couple of these I just took a hammer dolly and dollied them back into place, but right now I think it's real good. I've wiped it down with alcohol, and then I will put some sealer on here, set the gasket in place. I will turn this entire pan upside down and let the weight of the pan secure it in place, probably for a few hours, and then I will use this Permatex aviation gasket sealer on the back side of the gasket and on the face of the block, and we'll tighten it down to spec. So just stick with me and we'll take a look at this in just a few minutes. So I put a bead of black silicone Permatex sealer, this stuff right here, all the way around the perimeter of the oil pan, and I smooth it out, and then I've set the oil pan gasket in place, and I've used a few bolts that I've turned upside down just to center up the holes and get them all nice and straight, and so they're in the right place. Then I like to take this little roller I've got right here and just gently roll over the thing to press it in place and make sure that it's sitting flat and there's no bubbles. And so I'll just use this roller, go around the edges. And so now that I've got it in place, I'll just let it sit on this cardboard for a couple of hours, and it'll firm up and cure, and then I can proceed with putting it to the block. What I probably am going to do before I even do that is, after I've got this cleaned up, I noticed that it does have a few chips and dips in it. This was powder coated. I'm going to hit it with a Scotch-Brite pad, and then I'm probably going to go ahead and hit it with a light coat of paint on it as well. So while I'm waiting on the oil pan, one of the other things I thought I would do would be go ahead and change out these motor mounts. So I've got some new hardware here to secure it to the block, and we have a new Roadster Factory, a TRF engine mount, and so I've already put one in place, and this is the second. So I'm going to use some new hardware on here and secure that in place. And so let's get to that too. So there it is, screwed in place, new hardware. I want to share with you one of the tricks that I learned, or it's a process that I learned a long time ago from my dear friend Fred Thomas. Fred passed away many years ago. He was like a father figure to me. But he always said that a lot of the oil leaks that we have come from this sealing block right here. And often this surface and this surface are not exactly machined perfectly flat. And so you have a little rise right here, and you have a little step. You also have it on the front ceiling block. So what he always told me to do was to take some sealer and seal that up on the inside and there. But to make it smooth and make it flow out real good is if you take some plain old rubbing alcohol and put a little bit on your finger, it will actually smooth it and it levels it out nice and smooth. And so it's like leveling the floor. So now you have a nice even area for it to sit down. And when it dries, you don't have all these little ridges in here. So you can just take your alcohol on your finger and watch it self-level, and it'll evaporate away, and then you have a nice flat surface area to work with. Isn't that cool? Same thing up here. So I'll take my finger, wet it, go over it, and there it is, nice and flat. So now, when I put the gasket on, I don't have this step in here. I may actually put a little bit more right there because it's still a little bit of a step. So that's an old trick that Fred taught me many years ago, and I've always stuck with it. So something I thought I'd share with you. Hey guys, it's Sunday the 8th of August, another hot day. The temperatures have changed back to normal summertime temperatures. Last week we had a little reprieve. We had a cold front that came in, and it was a lot nicer to work through the week, but return of the August hot days are back. You know, sometimes we get tangled up in the simple things, and this morning I was putting this transmission back together, and I kind of second guessed myself. I was thinking, which way do I need to put these bolts? And so after a lot of thinking, and I decided I would ask the consensus, and a lot of folks had opinions that were differing. Some said this way, and some said the opposite way. So I don't know what's correct. I don't have my book, but it's just interesting how people's opinions differ. So today I mounted them this way. It may be wrong, may be right, I don't know, but that's what I've done. So the transmission is now mounted back. One of my goals was to try to get this done today so I could get all of this back on the chassis directly above me. And so hopefully I can get that accomplished today. I got the transmission mounted back in place, and I've got the starter back in place as well. So I discovered I had forgotten to order an intake manifold gasket, so I'll have to get that this week as well. Another thing I did is on the front back here, I got a new water pump and I got a new housing. My old housing was pretty rusty, and I was really concerned about it, along with this outlet tube. It's kind of corroded on the end, and so I'm trying to debate on whether I'm going to keep it or not. I cleaned out, I bored out the inside, so it's clean on the inside. It's still pretty solid. It's just a little corroded on the end right there. I may just grind it down and clean it up. But I forgot, in addition to ordering the gasket for the intake manifold, I forgot to order the gasket for this water assembly to the block itself. So I've got to get a gasket there. So, but that's easy stuff to change out when I get it on the chassis, and hopefully that'll be at the end of the day. So kind of an overview of what we got here. Again, I've got to change out, I've got a new one of these. I just got to find the thermostat, put it on. The housing is sitting on my bench right there. And that too will be put into place. And so, yeah, it's coming along pretty good. I just got to finish up a few things. And several people have asked about this cover, excuse me. I am not going to use this one. I am going to use another one that I have. I actually have two. I've asked my painter to paint one of them red, like the chassis and the body, and I'll see which one I like. But I've got another one here that we'll also paint in black, and or I'm also debating on painting it silver. So we'll see. That'll be a determination that'll come up a little bit down the road. Another thing I've got a problem with is the pipe that runs along the side of mine. Mine is completely rusted out, and I am trying to find another, which I have not been very successful. I ordered one for a TR6 in stainless from a friend of mine, but the shapes are not the same, and so I will probably just give that to my friend Russ, who is also in the process of doing his TR6 restoration. So a little bit of update where we are. We'll come back a little bit later and we'll get you up to speed on what's next. Check it back in a little bit.